What's up, guys? I would like to say a few things real quick before we get into this video. First, I want to address my new subs. Welcome, guys. It's great to see you. I've picked up more subs in the last 2 weeks than in the last 3 years. And if there's a person responsible for my visibility to new eyeballs being turned back on, thank you very much. If there's an AI responsible for that, thank you very much. But for new viewers, if this is the first time you have heard the term mud flood, I want to very strongly impress on you that what I'm saying by mud flood and what other people in their videos or even in my comment section are saying about it are quite often completely different. This all started a few years ago when people started noticing that there's all kinds of structures buried under our modern cities, especially in Europe. What you're looking at right here are the ruins of the ancient city Lutetia, right smack dab under Paris. In Rome, you have underground ruins going down something like 6 levels. Not only are there all these buildings that you can go take a tour underneath Rome and see, but Nero's circus is down there as well. And they say it was abandoned in the 2nd century, but the remains were still there till 1450. So it just sat there for 1300 years, and then they buried it and started building on top of it. The dates are important in understanding all of this also, just so you know. But there's a lot of strange stuff like this, like the buried city that I'm about to show you. And if you're new to this subject, by the end of this video, you'll have the basic understanding of my version of things here. If this video actually gets out and gets on the radar of people that are already familiar with mud flood, I was actually one of the first handful of channels to be covering this subject. And there's about 6,000 subs down in the comments that can attest to that. My channel blew up to 30,000 subs in the first 4 months, and then it just got turned off like a water faucet. I went from 500 or 600 new subs a day to about 10 per video for the last 3 years. And only about a third of my subs even knew I was making videos. So like Nitro Surf here, he says it's great rediscovering my channel. And it's a shame that my honesty hasn't been rewarded with more recognition, but sensationalism has won out online for this subject. Hopefully the last couple videos weren't a fluke, and I am getting out there in the recommendations once again. So if you are a veteran mud flooder, just know that I've done a ton of research into this subject. And I get a lot of comments thanking me for my straightforward, pragmatic, level-headed point of view on things. Most of the time. I do have some kind of crazy theories out there. But if you're new to this and you click on somebody else's video and hear some totally crazy stuff, just know that that's not where I'm coming from with all of this. I try to keep my research as historically accurate and as scientifically viable as possible. Now, I want to officially start the video right here. I'm sure everyone has heard of the ancient Sumerians. There's the Ancient Aliens History Channel side of things, there's academia's side of things, and all of this would lead you to believe that we have a very clear understanding of our history. But in reality, the very first discovery that alerted the world that there ever was a Sumerian civilization was discovered 140 years ago. That's it. And our modern understanding of things is just trying to piece together what happened in the past. Yet academia ignores some of the most blaring in-your-face connections, like the cosmic thunderbolt, seen here, that matches Zeus's thunderbolt, the ancient Greeks' version of ancient events. Academia writes this off as mythological allegories, but when you do your homework, you find out that there was a very real war in the heavens that had a devastating effect on humanity, and that's the whole reason they invented mythology in the first place, to pass this knowledge on to future generations. I would say that stories like the cosmic thunderbolt come to us from the last world age ending event. According to the Maya, we're in the age of the 5th sun, and what happened to the first 4 wasn't pretty. In Plato's Timaeus, he relates the following story given by an Egyptian priest to Solon. O Solon, you Hellenes, Greeks, are but children. There's no old doctrine handed down amongst you by ancient tradition, nor any science which is hoary with age, and I will tell you the reason behind this. There have been, and will be again, many destructions of mankind arising out of many causes, the greatest having been brought about by earth fire and inundation. Skipping down a little ways, he says it's because you didn't keep imperishable records. We've got it carved in our temples. And then, after a period of time, the usual inundations visit like a pestilence and leave only those of you who are destitute of letters and education. And thus you have to begin over again as children and know nothing of what happened in ancient times, either amongst us or amongst yourselves. In the first place, you remember one deluge only, whereas there were a number of them. And next, you come from the fairest and noblest race of men that ever lived, which you are but a seed or remnant. And this is not known to you because the survivors of the destruction spent generations just trying to survive. I also interpret this as your ancestors were giants that lived for hundreds and hundreds of years. I discussed this in a little bit more detail in this video a couple weeks ago. You know, everybody knows the story of Noah. Well, he was 900 years old when he died. And in the Epic of Gilgamesh, he's seeking out Utnapishnu for the secret to eternal life. Utnapishnu built an ark just like Noah. It's the same story as Noah. And they consider Utnapishnu an immortal, just like the surviving generations after Noah would have pretty much considered him immortal. When lifetimes were shrinking, he still lived to be 950 years. And the Epic of Gilgamesh is the Sumerian version of Noah's flood, ark, and everything. And just remember, nobody even knew the Sumerians ever existed until 140 years ago. So just keep that in mind when I question historical accuracy. Now, one more thing, and then I'll show you the ancient city of Viminacium. This is all kind of prerequisite learning to understand the big picture here. So far, we've discussed the world age-ending events, the big ones, but there's intermediary events that don't do quite as much damage, but still they take out a large portion of the population and societies collapse. So if you look at our current world age, we have three major collapses. The first being the late Bronze Age collapse. And this is all according to the official timeline of things. We'll discuss that at a later time. If they'll let me, I'll play a quick clip that summarizes this time period from Fall of Civilization's channel, which I highly recommend. If not, I'll just read the transcript.
Walls and roofs collapsed, bricks shattered and melted, and it's clear that whatever happened to Hattusha, the destruction was savage, unrelenting, and total. After that, the archaeological record here ends.
This is also supposed to be the same date as the Exodus in the Bible, where you hear about the famine in Egypt, and then the world fell into what's known as the Greek Dark Ages. Then you have the rise of the Roman Empire, and then they fall in officially 476 AD, supposedly because of the Visigoths, but I think this has more to do with 536 AD, where the sun didn't shine for 18 months. You also have earthquakes, volcanoes, Justinian's comet, the plague, and all of the things that happened during Earth's disaster cycle. Now, there's a lot to this period in history that I will cover in depth in future videos, but for right now, I'm just trying to do a quick summary for people that are brand new to this. But the official history says that we fell into another dark age and didn't come out of it until after more catastrophes in the 13th century, which they just simply teach us was the Black Death. Which you will learn that there's much more to it if you subscribe and stick around, basically. Shameless plug for you. But isn't it strange how we had the disaster cycle of, 536 AD and then basically nothing for 700-800 years, and then another cycle, and then our modern history starts. Anyway, it's a long topic. But now everybody understands these cycles that we go through. So let's take that understanding and apply it to archaeological sites like Viminacium. And this one is special. I've kept track of this for years. Watch what happens to the narrative as time goes on. This is in modern-day Serbia, right off of the Danube River, which is Europe's second largest river. It goes for thousands of miles, and this is an important factor in all this. It's important for shipping, and it also forms a natural border between the Romans and the people to the north that had different names in different time periods, which you'll see they refer to the Avars, which is much later in time. Anyway, when they first discovered this, they just said, this is a military base. This video is 7 years old. It's still up. Everything changes quickly on Google search. And I'll leave this in the links, but this guy says he's an avid archaeologist that he's interviewing, and they're standing at the entrance to the 7th Claudian Legion. 6,000 legionnaires were stationed there. And that's it. This is a military outpost. They had a bunch of soldiers on the border. Here's a little drawing of it, and you'll see in a minute. They knew the name of it because it had been written about. Somebody had written about Viminacium, but they discovered this. Now let's fast forward to 2018, and now it's a major city and military camp on the river, and only 3 to 4% of the site has been excavated. Now, modern day, they've got this scale model set up, and you see the military base there on the bottom. That's this. And then they got this whole huge city over here. They say one of the largest amphitheaters in the Balkans and a gladiator arena where they found the remains of wild beasts. Now, they found this because they were digging for coal mining. And look at this place. It's just below farmers' fields out here. And about 95% of all the archaeological sites are discovered by farmers or construction workers. You find sites all the time underneath modern cities, but every once in a while a farmer will stumble across this stuff just out in the middle of a field like this. In this case, coal miners digging down. But that's just somewhat level fields as far as the eye can see, and there's a city buried under there. So isn't the logical explanation here that the Danube overflowed big time and flooded and silted out the city? But now, what they described 7 years ago as Claudian's 7th Legion of 6,000 soldiers on the river is a major city of 48,000 people, been attacked by the Huns, not just any Hun, but Attila the Hun, but then rebuilt by Justinian, sacked by the Avars, won back from the Avars, and then finally taken out by the Slavs in the 7th century. How did we get from this little military base to all that again? Also, in nearby areas, they've found 3 different ships. I think ships and boats are grossly underrated in our modern technological world. You don't lose a ship lightly. For a ship to be in existence, it's just like modern day. There's somebody with deep pockets that has enough to pay someone that knows how to build a ship to then hire a crew to put on that ship with a captain that knows what to do with that ship and hopefully turn a profit with that ship. Not to bury the ship under a bunch of mud somewhere. Just look at how far down they are here. The wrecks were lying on a layer of gravel that was around 49 feet deep and were buried under a layer of 23 feet of clay and silt, mud flood much. The fact that it was on a layer of gravel makes me think that this was probably where the river was at that time. Typical water flow on a river is usually carrying the silt away, but when you get a major flood, then all of the extra silt from upstream comes down and gets deposited in this area. And now listen to the story on the ships themselves. This is as bad as the monkeys on the TV today. One says the timber-carved longboats were of a type used by the Avars and other nomadic groups who attacked the Romans at Viminacium. Okay, and then the next one says the ancient Roman vessels were found, and they were part of an ancient squadron of Roman warships that controlled the Danube. Oh, so it's a Roman fleet. No, wait. There's a possibility they were part of an invasion fleet that ultimately ended life as the Romans knew it at Viminacium in the early 7th century AD. Now we know the date of these ships somehow. And, well, it looks like they were just simply abandoned on the banks. Hey, guys, I found a Ferrari over here on the side of the road. I guess the guy didn't want it anymore. That's what they're saying here. This would have been a multi-$100,000 vehicle for the time on the superhighway of the time. And even if it were part of an invasion fleet that they fought off, they would have kept the ship afterwards. But they can't seem to decide whether it's Roman or Avar or who. They also found the remains of a mammoth here. Actually, several. This is an ongoing thing. But this article was written after the first one was found. And it's not only an important phenomenon for Serbia, but for the natural history of the whole planet. So it sounds like this really surprised them, and this is the only mammoth they've found in that area ever. So by their uniformitarianism philosophy, then they had to have migrated out of Africa a few million years ago. For the record, I laugh when people are talking millions of years with a straight face, and it's for this reason. They say it was discovered in yellow sand 27 meters, I believe they mean below the surface, and therefore it had to have been between 400,000 and a million years ago, where this Roman, no wait, Avar boat was found 49 feet deep. Well, that's half the depth of the mammoth, so this boat must be between 200 and 500,000 years old, huh? That's the problem with stratigraphic dating, is they assume the theory of uniformitarianism is true, to where all these geological processes take millions of years, and they don't account for any catastrophism in there. According to their theory, you have a deposition rate of 5 centimeters per year over 100,000 years, where in actuality 27 feet of it gets slammed on in one rainy season. Here you clearly see the layer of darker clay mud that was probably the mud layer at the bottom of the original river. And then above that, you've got the red sandy silt that all got washed down, smashed the boat down into the muck that was already in the river. Be my take on this. And then at the very top, you've got about 3 feet or so of the growth and decomposition of plant layers since that happened. Now, this is the Danube, a little before and after, back in 2013. And they do a lot of pumping to keep that river within its banks every year. Now, this is way up here in Germany at the beginning of the Danube that goes for thousands of miles. So if it floods that much at the beginning, then by the time it gets down here, it's raging. And I would hazard to guess that about 30 feet of silt got deposited in this whole entire valley. Now, they don't really know what happened in 536 AD or the 1300s. Some speculate it was volcanic. Some even say that a piece of Halley's Comet came off and slammed into the earth. But there's reports of ash and dust and the sun blackening for, I think, 18 months. But just think about what that would do to the overall atmosphere. Now, we don't have that many records from 536, but from 1314, we have it on record that it rained for like 8 months straight in England and just flooded everything. They couldn't grow food. And it washed all the topsoil away. So the topsoil is going to wind up down the river. And this is the beginning of the Little Ice Age. So when I hear the reports of 536 AD and the sun being dark for 18 months, I would guess that they went into a little ice age as well. And this was the beginning of the Dark Ages. So no, this had nothing to do with population decline and the Dark Ages coming on. I guess that would be the big question. Did a piece of Halley's Comet strike the Earth and wipe civilization out for 700-800 years before it actually did anything notable, invented anything worth having? It's kind of funny how you have the Dark Ages and then the Black Death and then the printing press and gunpowder and windmills and better sailing ships. But that's a story for another day. I don't want to get too far into Crazy Town. That's all right. Nobody watches these till the end anyway. But notice the thunder and lightning during the Black Death. That's not metaphorical. It was really cold and rainy. But yeah, I'd say this is a bona fide mud flood area, and I think there are many more out there that are completely unrecognizable. Hope you guys enjoyed it, found it interesting. I'll see you on the next one. Static out.